Right, okay. Good afternoon. So if you haven't met me yet in this world of championing zero waste textiles, my name is Meryl Chamberlain, and I completed a Churchill Fellowship last year after receiving funding to go and look at textile circularity in action today that's working. What is it that's going on in those parts of the supply chain that have never stopped being circular, for some parts nearly 200 years, very similar to Waverley, and what's going on with the technology and what's changed that we could maybe apply here in Australia, because we have a hell of a lot of natural advantages. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm a textile scientist. I've been in the industry 25 years, and it's been my privilege to work at every single stage, from retail brand all the way back to working with cotton grower in St George. So when I imagine talking about something in textile circularity, I'm picturing what that looks like in a factory, and I never tire of visiting factories. And so the premise of my trip was specifically to look at mechanical recycling. It often gets called a down cycle, but actually, and I'm thanking Guy for giving you all the intro to this, he's explained it beautifully. It can work and it can be beautiful, and so what is it about that we could start using now while we're waiting for all these other next gen things to come on stream? I'm surprised I'm the first to put this graph up today, actually. The graph of global fibre use is pretty compelling, and if we look at the year 2000, when it really started going nuts, that's when synthetics took off. It's also when email came in, and it was much easier to communicate with these supply chains all over the world as we globalised. And if you look at the green section at the bottom, that's our natural fibre use, mostly cotton. That's not really changed in the last 20 years. But everybody worries about market share. But it's not that the natural fibre use is dropping, it's that the synthetic use is growing. And I want you all to see that pink segment as the market opportunity for circularity. We do not need to be having squabbles between natural fibres, but we should be displacing that demand for synthetics with the things we can do, because natural fibres are the most valuable to recycle. Right. So that was why I went to go and have a look at it in action. And the other thing is volume. Like, we're going to have to stop the volume, right? So we're going to need to displace with the volume we've already made. I had an absolutely marvellous time visiting lots of factories, and this actually is Liberty's printing mill, this one isn't spinning. And I visited factories that also just do best practice with natural fibre, because right now our natural fibre could be regenerative. There is no barrier to it. The only thing stopping us is intensity. It's the level of grazing in the paddock. It's whether we're rotating our crops and having the biodiversity on site. So why is it that we are being too intense? It's because everybody's being driven on price. But there is nothing technically stopping us now from being regenerative with natural fibres. The bonus is that we can recycle them as well. So this is just an example of being in a best practice factory, which is always a joy. I also went to visit the people that make machines and found other female textile scientists, which was brilliant. And these ones in particular have been inventing and evolving the spinning machinery so that it can handle shorter and more varied fibre than ever before. And they've developed machines that can not only spin virgin cotton, in this case, really fast and really high end, but can also handle a really big variety of the mechanically recycled fibres, which means they've literally been designing the machines to be agile, to cope with the variety we're going to need if we're going to valorise these mechanically recycled fibres. And they need hardly anyone to run them. They can pretty much run themselves. It's all automated and robotic. Phenomenal. And the final bit, the bit that's really exciting, and Guy's already talked about this, is mechanical recycling no longer needs to be a down cycle. If you have got excellent quality fibre in your first fabric, then there is no reason to not slightly more gently tease it apart to create a brilliant feedstock to be part of the next yarn. And it's a very boring picture, really, of a machine with big tubes, but that's what it actually looks like in action. Because all the tubes are to do with moving the fibre from one stage to the next. But the good thing about that is it's really safe. It's not a really dusty environment. Like, this is not a Victorian industry anymore. It's actually really high-tech and clean. And just the other things is when we separate by fibre and by colour, that's when we keep the value. When we do the finicky work, as Guy called it, then it's not about what does it cost to process, it's about what beautiful things we can create so that then it's worth doing it, and that's where the sweet spot is. So, for those of you that know me, I've been banging on about the fact that we do need to bring back spinning, and I won't have it be told that it's not worth doing, because it is, and we've done the maths on the costs and the operational. But what I wanted to look at while I was away wasn't just machines in buildings, which is super fun. It was what is going on that these businesses are still there. What is the anatomy of these thriving businesses? And so the blunt truth is, it is the polar opposite of trying to go pre-seed, seed, blah, blah, blah. This is about businesses planned for decades and centuries. This is family or family-like businesses. They are thinking in generations. They are focusing only on excellence and being leading edge. A lot of their IP is more their trade secrets and their institutional knowledge. It won't necessarily be patented. They're always looking to push boundaries. They are across many markets. We're just talking about fashion today, but actually it's going to be a mix. It's going to be industrial, it's going to be functional, it's going to be government, it's going to be fashion, it's going to be a mix. They're not bothered about market share, they're bothered about their own market value and just being a good value, prosperous business. They own their own buildings, all of them. So unless any business plan we've got includes planning for that, we're on a hide into nothing. And then the last thing is the, oh God, I can't even see it now, I'm stuck in this box. But basically that. So essentially we can make all the plans in the world about product costs and machinery costs, but unless we make a plan so that that's the shape and size of the business in 10 years' time, we're just going to be flogging ourselves and then getting frustrated. So this is a completely different approach to trying to valorise a next-gen fibre or try and valorise a next-gen dye. Okay? It's not that we don't need to do that, but it's just different. This is infrastructure. And it's about filling factories. So, the only diagram, because I'm a fan of getting out of the flowchart and into the factory. We're missing one link here. We actually can do quite a lot here, and we have got pockets of prosperity, and I'm after making one more pocket of prosperity and adding to Waverley's capability and ability to spin short staple fibre at a bit more scale than the brilliant guys from Deakin University over there that spun the yarn I'm wearing today. So that's what we're missing, and that's what I've been working on costing, and then went to see the machines I'd like. And so this is an example of one of the few brand new mills that I saw. It's in the Netherlands, and just like us, that was the bit they were missing, although they had the fibre ragging already there. And you can see all those different yarns, fibres already set to spin. This machine can do 6 different yarns at once. So you could have ANZ's old uniform being spun into something that could go into curtains. You could have the t-shirts left over from one of the many charity fun runs going into being made into upholstery fabric. You could have Zoltan's offcuts going into another yarn that's a lovely grey marl for another t-shirt he could make. And some of that could be captured here, but that yarn could go into your factories overseas in Vietnam or whatever. We don't have to do everything always onshore. We can do a mix and work together to find the viable combinations. That's what it looks like. And so the minimum viable volume, 1,500 tonnes a year, sounds a lot, 6 million t-shirts worth. We import 1.4 billion, so I think we can find it between us, can't we? And then that could be about 50-50 virgin. So we'd still use a little bit of cotton, a little bit of wool. I know that's a rounding error compared with the amount we grow. I'm not competing with all the bales on boats. We just could play with a little bit and show the world what we could do. And then the main thing is that to do this would be around 25 million Australian dollars. Now that sounds like a lot, but I'm pretty sure there are technologies represented in this room that add up to hundreds of millions of dollars in VC. We could put this in and we could be displacing 750 tonnes, that's 750,000 kilos a year immediately to start dealing with that wedge. We haven't got to wait 5 to 10 years for those things to commercialise. So my contention is we just need to start getting on using the technology available while the next gen stuff comes on stream and we can, walk and chew gum. Finally, what do we know? So we know that it could cost and be viable. We know the next steps needs a detailed FISO planned on building that viable business model. And we know we need stakeholders on board. I do not want to be asking any investor for money unless I've got 50% in offtake agreements from the public sector for at least 50% of it. Because the fashion industry is incredible, but the pressure and the ephemeral nature of it means you can never be dependent on a loan to fill a factory. So the real innovation is how do we work out how to work together and build those long-term relationships. And so on that, I think I might have used that. Have I got my time? Yeah. So really, we can tackle the tons together now. And come and see me later, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm prolific there, and we could just get on with it.